Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's military movie review video, we're going to be reviewing Star Trek, the first film in the trilogy reboot that started in 2009. What do I remember? Because sometimes there's a lag between me watching it and me reviewing it. Not a huge lag, but a lag. There is the main character, I'm going to say Captain maybe James Kirk. So let's say Captain Kirk. He's not a captain right now. We're just gonna say Mr. Kirk. So Mr. Kirk is the main character. It kind of shows his origin story, his I'm a rebel, I'm young, I do what I want, and I drive motorcycles. And this kid's like 14. So very, rebellious energy. So that's young Kirk. Then of course he grows up. At one point he's in a bar. He gets in a bar fight with some people, which we'll discuss later in this review. And eventually, let's keep moving, he joins the fleet. Space Fleet? Space Academy. Space Force? He joins the Space Fleet. That's what we're gonna call it right now. So he joins it, and the first movie, we're just going to call it Star Trek, because I think that's what it's called. In the first film, it's just the adventure of him being part of a team, that team and the ship he's a part of running into a very, ominous villain, antagonist, main enemy. Them coming together, him having some character growth, because he's rebellious, doesn't do things the way he's supposed to or was trained. Him figuring out how to make the right call, but sometimes follow the rules, or sometimes not follow the rules. That's giving Kirk energy. Young Kirk and now adult Kirk, goes on adventures with his pals that are part of the USS Enterprise is the name of the spaceship that they are assigned to. Like I said, there's a big bad enemy. Watch the film if you'd like to. I think the Star Trek films are kind of good. I think the first one was pretty good quality. I'm pretty sure it's directed by J.J. Abrams. If you don't know who that is, it means quality most of the time. The first note that came to mind, and it's funny because I'm wearing blue. Isn't that nice? The first note I wrote was, this is so Navy. Like, it's so Navy. I think from the film they did use the word Space Academy, and that makes me think of Air Force Academy, Naval Academy. I'm like, okay, so it is a military branch. Yes, by this point in their timeline, humankind is an intergalactic situation, but it's still, when you're thinking about home base Earth, young Kirk and I guess adult Kirk prior to joining eventually considers to join the Space Academy, so to go to an academy. They use the word fleet all the time. That's of course Navy coded, so you would think it'd be Space Force coded, right? Or maybe Air Force because they're flying things. Incorrect. Throughout this film, it became very apparent that, I should have known from the whole USS Enterprise, which is a very famous, Star Trek ship. And, the whole Captain Kirk, that's like the protagonist, main character of almost all of the Star Trek, franchise. So if you're using like Captain and you're using Fleet and you're using, what's the other one? Oh yeah, USS Enterprise. Anything capital USS is giving Navy vessel. So, in my humble opinion, this is really a Navy movie that went to space. It's happening in space, but it's pretty much a Navy movie. So if you're interested in the Navy, you should pay attention to the culture and vibes of Star Trek. Oh, and I think somewhere in there, I think Kirk becomes Ensign Kirk, or someone is Ensign, and that's literally the first officer rank in the Navy. Star Trek equals Navy adjacent film. So keep that in mind when you're watching it. It would match the pipeline if you were to apply, get accepted to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, be enlisted for 4 years, because you're in between being enlisted and being an officer. You're like a cadet. I don't know. That's what I think that's what they call it at the Air Force Academy. I don't know if that's what you get called at the Naval Academy. So we're just going to call it a cadet, but just know that's wrong. So you're enlisted-ish officer in training for 4 years, and then when you graduate, you become an ensign, or if it's the Air Force, a second lieutenant. You know when I said he gets into a fight because he's rambunctious? Well, that happens to be in a fight with all of these other officer candidates that are already either at the Naval Academy or they were in like JROTC, so junior ROTC, and they were ramping up to go to the Naval Academy soon. So they were recruits. They were already vectored to attend the Space Academy. I'm sorry, not Naval Academy. And so continuing on, he got in a fight with all of them. So when he does decide to join Space Academy, he runs into a couple people that he definitely threw fists with, like, a few nights ago. So that's kind of like a funny way the story starts to get developed of how he is seen by his peers before they become really good friends as this rebel child who barely got in to the Space Academy, or like got in on a whim. Slight asterisk, his father was definitely a captain. So he has lineage of being like Space Academy, space officer, being part of the space fleet. However, his father died when he was young, and it seems as though he never really planned on joining space fleet. But hey, look how life happens sometimes. Now he is vectored to be a captain as well. So it's very Navy coded, this whole movie. It's a good movie. It's an adventure movie. So, you know, like I said, there's a big bad guy. You don't know if they're gonna win. Pow, pow, pow. Randomly landing on other planets, so that's kind of fun. And then by the end, of course, Captain Kirk wins, and his team wins, and the USS Enterprise survives, and he has a best friend slash second in command is Spock. And if you know anything, or now you're learning about the Star Trek franchise, Kirk and Spock are very famous friends in this franchise. They have each other's back, they know each other, they have strengths where the other person has weaknesses. So anywho, he meets Spock, and of course they hate each other at first. Completely different ways of thinking. Spock is logical, rational, very risk assessment, risk avoidant sometimes, very mathematical. He's like, doesn't make sense, yes or no. If it's a no, I don't care. We're not doing it. Kirk is passion, intuition, gut, all of that thing. You've seen these archetypes before. You get where we're going with it. Of course, Kirk goes to an academic review board because he did something fancy and not allowed for one of his final assignments at Space Academy. He tried it, and so he had to go to an academic review board. Somewhere in there they yell the con, and I do know that that's a Navy term. Last thing that I was like, this is so strange, is that there's this thing that Navy people say, it has to do with being on the bridge. They'll sometimes say, hey, if you're on watch, you're making sure the coast is clear. If you're standing watch, but it's the end of your shift, they're like, I'm ready to be relieved. And then someone who's relieving you says, you are relieved. And then you go back and go, I am relieved. That's very Navy. And they said that somewhere in this film. I'm pretty positive. Star Trek, very fun movie. I would just say you should watch it if you like action films. But let's say that's not good enough for you. Out of all these random movie reviews, if you're like, is it worth my time or not? An action film that's kind of recent is not a good enough sell. Either decide not to watch it, you'll be fine. Or I would say lean into watching it if you're not only interested in, let's say the Air Force, but let's say you're interested in the Navy. Because who knows, maybe there's people watching these videos that are interested in Army, Navy, Marine, Space Force, you know, Coast Guard, all the things. So out of you guys who are curious about the Navy, I think you probably should watch the Star Trek first film, and maybe the rest of the films that came after it following 2009. That concludes this movie review. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I will of course see you in the future. And if you did enjoy this video and other videos like it, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn the notification bell to on so you know when I upload brand new videos. If you want to see a little bit more of this face, you can find me on Instagram at Michael Inman _. Have a great day and see you later. Bye.